103.2 Dublin City FM for the best in all sports coverage, analysis, interviews and reports.
Welcome back to On The Ball. I'm now joined in studio with Neill Marshall and Kenny Murphy. Lads, how are you keeping today?
Great, thanks. You?
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. Lots to touch on anyway.
A lot to go through, yeah.
Grand, I think no time like the present. You're going to start with UFC 175.
Yeah, we're going to talk about last night's show, and very newsworthy show. It was quite incredible. The semi-main and the main event both delivered in completely different ways. But first off, we'll go through a portion of the undercard. The Uriah Faber fight. First off, it was the main event on Fox Sports 1 before the pay-per-view. There was obviously a lot of questions about why Uriah was not actually on the pay-per-view itself. What was this fight like, and was it a good play to have it on before the pay-per-view? Was it a good main event for the Fox show?
It was a great main event for the Fox show, and if you work for Fox, I'm sure you're delighted. Was it a good idea? My own personal idea is, especially now the prelims are 2 hours long.
Yes.
I don't believe they really have any effect. There's never been any proof to the effect that if you have a half-hour, or 2 hour prelim show, that then the pay-per-view does better numbers. I've seen it in pro wrestling as well, where they used to have Sunday Night Heat or the Countdown show, and it never affected the buy rates. And you know, it's just, I mean, you've got one of the biggest stars of the show, and he's on the free card. Yeah. So then you know you want me to pay to see Russell Doane and Marcus Brimage?
Yeah, exactly. And we'll get to that fight. But another thing that like an extra nuance on the Uriah Faber situation was Stefan Struve and Matt Mitrione were supposed to have a fight.
Yes.
Stefan Struve, did he faint?
We didn't discuss, by the way, the Faber-Caceres fight. Let me just quickly.
Oh yeah, of course. Go ahead.
Uriah won with a rear naked choke, 69 seconds into the or before the end of the third. It was just typical Uriah. You know, he didn't necessarily look like a world beater in the first couple of rounds. I mean, Caceres is a tall guy. He'd been on a good streak. Bruce Leroy, if you don't know who he is from The Ultimate Fighter. I mean, Faber had probably just about nicked the first 2 rounds, but they were scrappy, tough rounds. You know, he was on course to win. But I guess for him here, it was a lose-lose situation. He had to win impressive. And again, I mean, he did win impressive. Caceres was trying to get back up after a takedown, and he managed to sink in a rear naked. You know those alpha male guys are like, once they get you neck, you are not getting free. So Faber looked impressive here. He's going to go up against Kid Yamamoto and the Japan card in a couple of months, which should be an easy enough fight for him. Another big win. I think only one more away from another title shot. But let's go on to the Stefan Struve situation.
Yeah, so he supposedly fainted backstage, or came very close to it. His blood pressure dropped significantly. He was basically like, it was described as an anxiety attack, I believe.
A panic attack
of sorts, which is interesting because it's not like this guy hasn't fought on UFC pay-per-views. And Matt Mitrione probably isn't the most star maker of a fight, you know. So interesting one there. Presumably he'll be all right.
Yeah, it certainly sounds as though the issue was physical but caused by psychological issues. Stefan Struve hasn't fought in about 16 months since Roy Nelson broke his jaw, and then shortly thereafter in a physical it was discovered he had an issue with his heart.
Yes.
And it looked as though he may never fight again. I don't want to start talking about the heart issue in detail, just because I'm not a doctor, I'm not kind of an expert in that situation, but I read a lengthy article on MMAfighting.com the other day about it, in which it was implied that he will need open heart surgery later in his life. Now he can live a comfortable life, he can fight, but he's actually he has been fighting all along, kind of at a reduced capacity. They have him on medication to making his heart function better now.
Wow. So
in theory he should be better, but you know, he had an anxiety attack for whatever reason. I can only assume, you know, I mean, he's younger than me. He's probably around your age, Neil. We're breaking kayfabe here. I think he's 25, 26, and he has heart issues, and he's going into a fight. He hasn't fought in a while.
Yeah,
big high pressure situation. I think it just all got too much for him, and definitely the right decision to take him off the card. You have to question if he says, "Okay, I will come back. I'll give it another go." Because I thought, well, maybe they just move this 2 weeks, put it in Dublin. But if it's a psychological issue, either, you know, he says, "Okay, I will make another go at it." And tries to fight again, but who's to say that he doesn't kind of freak out again?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's interesting to know if he will ever fight again.
Yeah, absolutely. It would have been actually very interesting to add that to the Dublin card. I think it would have added a lot to the show. But he'll have to go through a plethora of tests now. You know, UFC, like, he's a red flag now. That's a major risk.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at Dan Hardy has a syndrome, a heart condition. I think it's called Wolff-Parkinson syndrome. I can't remember what it is, but it is a lower risk issue than Struve's is. However, he's also been encouraged to have surgery for it, and UFC wants him to have the surgery before they let him fight again. Hardy has refused, with his logic being, you can't really fault this, that open heart surgery is a much bigger risk to his health than just living with the condition he has.
Sure.
And so, we haven't seen him fight in a couple of years, and I would hazard a guess. I mean, he's never officially kind of come out and said this, but I would guess that his fighting career is finished, which is why he's in commentary now. So, when it's the ticker, you don't want to mess around.
Absolutely. And the first fight of the actual pay-per-view itself was the aforementioned Russell Doane against Marcus Brimage. Ken, of course, brought it up as just the idea that the man who had lost, Conor McGregor, was going to be on a pay-per-view show when Uriah Faber wasn't, and Russell Doane was also going to be on a pay-per-view show. Yeah. So tell us about this fight. It went the distance, and Russell Doane won via split decision. Was it any good?
I mean, it was a competitive fight. Doane out-wrestled him. Greco-Roman wrestling kind of took us back quite a few times, and as the fight wore on, Brimage kind of became savvy to Doane's tactics. So Brimage definitely took the third. You could make an argument he took the second, which is probably why it's split. But Doane was the winner here, and it was an okay fight. It was a fight.
Thiago Santos against Uriah Hall in middleweight action also went the distance. Not the best way to open up the pay-per-view itself. How would you rate this, and how did Uriah Hall look?
Hall and Santos. Okay, so the story of this fight was it was a kickboxing match. In the first 5 minutes, at some point, Uriah Hall broke his toe really badly. Now, people who didn't see this fight, if you remember the way John Jones' toe looked after the fight with Chael Sonnen, it was the exact same situation. And there was this bizarre situation in between the first and second round where Hall limped back to his corner and kind of addressed the issue with his corner, like, look at my toe, it's broken. And it was badly broken. It was overlapping one of his other toes on top of it, and the bone was sticking out. And the doctor comes over and starts looking at it. His corner start going, nah, he's fine. And somebody even said, oh, it's always like that, or it's been like that, the bone actually sticking out. The doctor actually says you can see the bone, And I'm just sitting there going, okay, the fight's going to be stopped.
Surely.
And incredibly, it's not stopped. They just talk him into, no, he's fine. And I just was watching this, and there was a point in the third round where Thiago Santos had him up against the cage. And how often do you see two dudes, muscling up against the cage, and one stomps on the other?
Yes.
On the other's foot.
Good Lord.
And Thiago Santos knew about the injury, you could tell, because in between rounds, Uriah was limping, and it was just very clear, it's a broken toe. Had that happened, I thought, as much as I didn't want it stopped, the fight should have been stopped. However,
did Thiago actually focus on it at any stage?
No,
that
he
you
didn't.
could see.
No, and the second fight ended. He was all, "You okay?" and that kind of thing. Uriah did win the fight. He outstruck him. All you really had to worry about was some leg kicks from Santos. But Uriah, he tried a lot of his flashy stuff. He tried a rolling thunder kick. He tried his spinning kick. He tried all that kind of stuff. He didn't land much of it, but he did take the decision here, 2-1.
Excellent stuff for Uriah Hall against all odds. That's kind of incredible. Was there anything said at the press conference? Like, did he do a lot of damage to himself?
He was already at the hospital, and he's tweeted out pictures. He had to get it set immediately.
Okay, let's.
Neil has a weak stomach, ladies and gentlemen.
No, just that in particular, because the John Jones one got me so bad. Do you remember it was out absolutely nowhere, and I just couldn't.
But the strange thing was, if you recall the John Jones one, when Jones looked down and realised Joe Rogan started calling for a stool to be brought in. We can't cancel the post-fight interview. However, you can sit down for it. But with Hall, he just was talking to him, and it's just like, I was just sitting there going, the dude's, his toe is horribly broken. There's a bone sticking out, and we're just gonna, he walked out of the cage. I was like, is that sanitary to walk from the cage to the back with your bone exposed?
Really.
No, my wife is a nurse, as you know, Neil, and she was
disgusted with this. No. Well, it's not really, because they don't change the canvas, so staph infection territory, right?
How often do you see dudes get staph infection?
Yeah, it's that, and there was so much blood in the main event that we could have had an issue. We'll get to that in a moment. First off, we'll talk about the semi-main, which was the first of 2 title fights on the show. Women's bantamweight action. Biggest star in the company, Ronda Rousey, against Alexis Davis. Ronda did her very best on the media rounds this week to try and play up the idea of this being an important fight and a fight that she would have to work hard to win. Most other pundits and people knew that Alexis Davis was just a little stop block between maybe a Carano fight or bigger and better things for Ronda, to be honest. This was the least anticipated match of Ronda Rousey's championship reign thus far, and you might have heard Ken drop competitive because that was also the case. 16 seconds in round one, they traded right and left for a while, like literally about 5 seconds.
You say a while, yeah, the fight didn't even last for a while.
5 seconds. Then Ronda caught her with one, got her in a headlock, judo throw over the hip, down, and like a bully in school, she was with all her weight on Alexis Davis' chest, had her head completely disconnected with her arm around her neck, and just wailed on her with rights.
The way you said that, her head wasn't physically disconnected.
Not physically disconnected, but there was nothing she could have done to block it, is the point. And Ronda Rousey wailed on her with 7 right hands before the fight was stopped. Right, this literally looked like two people who were worlds apart.
Yeah, it was so quick that I kind of first thought when I saw the stoppage, I thought that's early, you know, because if you didn't see her arm go limp, it looked that way, and I think the crowd initially did, and then, you know, one of the more comedic, strange, kind of sad sights in UFC history, Alexis Davis starts trying to take down the referee.
Well, first off, she wouldn't let go of Ronda.
Yeah, and then Ronda kind of pulls her off, and Alexa starts trying to take down, I believe it was Eve Levine, wasn't it?
It was Eve Levine, yes.
And not only this, but then the doctor comes in and she's trying to take down the pair of them, you know? She was
at the same time
completely unconscious. And
absolutely. Perfect.
You could just hear the doctor and the referee saying the fight is over. She had no idea. And it took longer for her to regain consciousness than it took Ronda Rousey to knock her out.
Okay.
From the opening bell. Ronda looked incredibly impressive.
That's absolutely
here.
True, actually. Yeah, this is the question. Ronda looked impressive. Okay, so was it the fact that Alexis was at the level she's at? Every single fight, you know, you can put your money on the idea of hearing, I'm so much more equipped at striking than I have been before. Yada yada yada. Like, you can't say she didn't look impressive, but like, if she was to go against like a Cyborg, would she have as big an opportunity to knock her out?
Cyborg is an outlier. Cyborg, I mean, Cyborg, we can say this openly. Cyborg failed a drug test for testosterone. It's a fair shout to say that a lot of her career was built off. Yeah, I mean, she's a great striker and everything, but she was clearly using performance-enhancing drugs for most likely her entire career and was caught at one point.
Could you rate Ronda's striking very highly then? In fairness,
yeah, her striking. I mean, if you look at the knee against Sarah McMahon,
it's just two.
The knee against Sarah McMahon was pinpoint. She went. They sparred for what happens when McMahon bends down, tries to grab you. There's a spot you can hit on the liver that just paralyzes the body. And it looks, whenever I see it in any fight, I remember Tito Ortiz getting hit by Rashad Evans with a knee similar to a couple of years ago. It just looks like it just completely disables their entire body for a number of seconds, and so that's what happened there. This was you know, when she schoolboyed her over the top, it looked bad, but it was incredible how that happened, you know, how quick it all just changed around. But then in many ways the fight was over, I can't even think the word, by Joe Rogan and the faux pas on the mic with you can tell
this is an interesting one. So the post fight interview, he was speaking to Ronda, and he said basically, you know, can you save the August show? Are you going to be able to come in and fight the August show? And there's kind of a lot of like queries about that, in the sense that Dana White in the press conference blamed it on the producer just saying something in Joe's ear.
Yeah.
A lot of people though had heard rumblings.
It seemed
about
logical, you know, that if she came out unscathed, that might be what they would do.
Yes, and she obviously did. I don't see it happening, and she gave a very awkward answer. She did.
She kind of said yes, you know, but it was a yes, but I need knee surgery. It also came out she
needs knee surgery.
Yeah, she needs knee surgery. She said that. Yeah, she's getting knee scoped. She also had an issue with her knuckle, which I can't remember the exact physical issue, but it's not going to happen is basically the upshot of that. She wants to. She mentioned in the press conference she wanted to fight in the New Year's card, which Weidman did as well. They want to continue to fight on the same cards because it seems to work well for them.
Fantastic.
Let's move to Weidman.
Speaking of, absolutely, Chris Weidman defending the middleweight championship for the first time since the Anderson Silva rematch against Lyoto Machida. This went the distance, and it was the fight of the year.
I think this was a fantastic fight. I think for Chris Weidman, this is exactly what he needed. There was a fear that this was going to be a boring fight. Lyoto Machida has a way to make fights boring. Chris Weidman has his last 4 fights, okay? He beat Damian Maia on Fox on 2 weeks' notice when he cut from 215 to 185, and he just wrestled him for 15 minutes. People kind of discredited him because all he did was wrestle him. When he beat Mark Munoz, people started saying, well, after the fact, maybe Munoz wasn't all that given his kind of run since then. And the 2 Anderson Silva fights, we've been over that ground. People kind of discredit him for reasons around that. This was a real legitimate challenge. People cannot figure out Lyoto Machida. The only people who've ever beaten him were John Jones because of his size difference, and Shogun just had his number.
Yeah.
But Weidman for 3 rounds here, he used his pressure, he used his striking, he used his wrestling. He looked like he was going to take Machida apart, and Machida looked like a warrior coming back in the 4th and 5th. I thought Machida came very close to finishing in the 4th.
Yes.
Weidman showed a real chin here, and Weidman, more than anything, he showed how tough he was in the 5th. Because he came back and he won that round. And then again, even in the last 30 seconds, Machida took over and started pounding on him and could have got a stoppage there. It was a fantastic fight. Both men came out of it looking better. But Weidman here, this was the fight where he rubber stamped. He's not to be messed with. He's not a fluke. He is the best middleweight in the world, and I think these two will fight again.
Real quick, who does Weidman go against next?
Oh, he goes against Vitor and he hammers him, because Vitor 6 months from now, he's going to be drug tested like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's 36, 37 years of age, and he's always been a front runner. He's always been a guy who gets 3-5 minutes out of it, and that's it. And so I think that Weidman handles him.
Mixed martial arts. No one else talks about it except us. On the ball.
Dublin City FM.
And we're back here with like MMA for 10 minutes or so. Like MMA, not actual MMA, just something quite similar to
something
it. So we're going to be talking about the show in the O2 on July 19th. We're going to be previewing a bit of that. The full card is now out as compared to a few weeks ago when we spoke about it. And this is literally like the absolute creme de la creme of Irish stars. So from SBG we have Patrick Houlihan, Carl Prendard, who's just featured in The Ultimate Fighter. We have Norman Park, who was in The Ultimate Fighter 2 seasons ago. We have Gunnar Nelson and Conor McGregor, and then Neil Seary as well, who fought on the last UFC card in London. Is also, so this is like perfect. There is literally nobody missing here when it comes to Irish.
When it comes to Irish MMA, no. When it comes to stars and things,
well, you know, people can have star-making performances. Hopefully on the night, 3E are carrying the show.
Yeah,
which is great for people who don't have BT Sports. So that's a huge statement of intent. Now in the US though, it is only going to be shown on Fight Pass. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true.
This is terrible.
Yeah, I mean, it just is what it is, really. The fight is to build the sport in this country. It should succeed in doing that. Of course, it limits how big an impact Conor McGregor has. You'd think if he won impressively here, it's only a shame this August 2nd fight card, which for people who don't know, Jose Aldo is due to fight Chad Mendes for the championship. It's only that's on August 2nd. It's only a shame that wasn't, say, August 19th or August 16th, 2 weeks later, because then if McGregor had a good win here, he could try and step in and face Chad Mendes. Obviously it wouldn't be for a title or anything, but he could really try and kind of jumpstart his career, because as it is, you know, who's to say he doesn't fight again until sort of October, November, and it would probably be another Fight Pass show in the UK, I would guess.
I think you're absolutely right. It would be incredible if he was able to step in, because you know, he essentially, if he's stepping in for the Jose Aldo fight and he won, he would then like pretty much be a rite of passage to fight Jose Aldo
if he won. Personally, I think that's by the way, nothing against Conor, but I think Chad Mendes is an awful matchup for him. Yeah, well, Chad
Mendes could definitely stylistically be an issue.
Exactly.
Let's just look forward to what we have against Diego Brandao. This is Conor's first fight since the ACL.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting in itself. Going back to the presentation of the show, which we always seem to talk about, obviously we've been critical about the way that UFC mic the arenas. There isn't really... You can hear reports from the building that the crowd is excellent, but it mightn't come across on TV.
Crowd, yeah.
This is a huge opportunity. Even just his entrance alone, this is a huge opportunity to get an incredible moment. Like when he comes out, just that walk to the cage is going to be unbelievable. And if they mic the crowd properly, that could be just something that, you know, they could show literally at the top of every hour on Fight Pass for a week if they wanted to.
Totally, yeah. I mean, it's a real chance to show what a star he's become. He's a superstar over here, you know. I mean, you see him I saw him in an advertisement in RTE the other day. They had a clip of him saying 50 G's baby from the UFC show on it.
They're actually filming The Notorious Part 2. So The Notorious was the documentary.
I just find very, UFC is very sensitive about who uses their footage.
Yes.
So it's very difficult. And the fact that his fight is going to be on 3E, not RTE yet. They're letting RTE have the footage. So, he's a big deal over here, and his superstardom can translate, worldwide. We've had a number of fighters. I think I've heard Clay Guida mention his name, Diego Sanchez. A number of name UFC fighters talk about wanting to fight Conor. I think one of those fights, if we were to get past Diego, a fight against Clay Guida, maybe. Guida again is a tough fight. Maybe even against Diego Sanchez, if Sanchez could make 145. One of those fights where he could get a victory over a name, doing on a big platform. That could be exactly what his career needs, because he's on the verge of being able to make real money in the sport and have a real Irish presence, which will be a huge boost to the sport for years to come, because we're like the Brazilians in that we get behind our own.
Absolutely, and it'll be huge, especially as he could become a massive star on the East Coast. Like, if he was to do shows in New Jersey and Boston, Philadelphia, it'd be gigantic.
Yeah. Just jumping in, guys, you were on about the crowd and so on, how it can have a huge effect on it. For people that wouldn't really know and listen to the show, wouldn't be big fans of MMA, I know I watch a bit of it, but could you describe what it would be like Katie Taylor 2012? I remember seeing McGregor walking out in Boston and the crowd went nuts for him. Absolutely. So I could only imagine what it would be like in the O2.
Yeah, it was the quickest sellout. It was the quickest sellout in UFC history. That just says it all. Irish MMA has become very overpopulated the last 2 years. Actually, not so much in 2014, but 2013 there was a huge so many shows, so many local shows all the time. It basically seemed that if you had a gym, you had the right to put on a show. You just would book a pack hall or a community centre. You'd set up an octagon and you'd barter with other gyms that you have a friendly relationship with, pick 7 of the guys in yours and go, he'll fight him, and it just never ended. It was unbelievable. But
it does make it hard. In a lot of ways it's similar to the UFC.
It's very similar, but
it becomes oversaturated and it's hard to know who the real creme de la creme are.
But just speaking about people who are casual fans in this country and maybe wouldn't even go to local shows, it just shows the reach of him alone that it was the quickest sellout in UFC history. That's absolutely gigantic.
It is essentially Conor McGregor versus a mop, you know what I mean? No offence to Diego Brandao, but I would say the many people who are buying tickets to these shows, this show rather, who know a great deal about Diego, or watched The Ultimate Fighter when he was on it, or are very familiar with his fighting style, it's very slim. Probably would have been, Cole Miller would have been a slightly bigger name, but it really is. He's the draw here, in the exact same way as it was Ronda Rousey against him up,
Absolutely. So we're giving Diego Brandao no chance here. Well, at least Kenny isn't. So let's remember that.
Just on another Irish perspective is Carl Pendred. I remember a couple of years ago when Conor McGregor and Carl Pendred, they made appearances together, but McGregor seems to have jumped a mile ahead of Pendred. But I know Pendred, he had a good showing in the Ultimate Fighter as well. I think he got knocked out in the semi-final, but he's after securing a contract to the UFC now. So what could you tell me about him and to the listeners, what's his style of fighting? Is he like McGregor, or is he completely different?
That's a brilliant question. He's a little bit different. Conor McGregor is very kind of unpredictable fighter in a lot of sense. Obviously his ground game would suffer from anything that European fighters do suffer from when it comes to wrestling, but I believe that Pendred is a higher belt ranking in jiu-jitsu, but Carl Pendred as well is like a middleweight compared to Conor McGregor being a featherweight, so Carl Pendred would be more of a powerhouse as well. His showing on The Ultimate Fighter was hilarious. He saved a dolphin, which was an incredible moment.
He never saved that dolphin.
The
dolphin died in the end.
He tried to save a dolphin.
Making kayfabe again.
Let's keep. No, he saved the dolphin. So obviously he was. He's a very, very charismatic. Yeah, he was kind of 1A, to Conor. In the sense that Conor had signed. They both appeared on the Late Late Show, and the idea was at the time Pendred was middleweight Cage Warriors champion, which was the promotion that McGregor had come from being a double champion in. So it seemed a natural progression in terms of Irish stars was, here's the guy who's just made the big time, here's the next guy who's going to do it. And he had to do it. I don't think he expected to have to go through The Ultimate Fighter. I actually think we had Cathal on the show before, and I actually think that he maybe thought, just because of his his fights in Cage Warriors that he would perhaps be able to bounce up.
Jump.
But yeah, so he's definitely one to watch. I'm actually kind of sad he's not on the main card. But when you look at the people who are, he wouldn't be there yet. A win would be huge for him. Sure.
I think just one key thing, and I hope no one's offended if Carl's listening, is that the reason Conor McGregor got there first was Conor McGregor is a better fighter.
Yes.
Conor McGregor, his striking he is as technically proficient, maybe as anyone in the featherweight division. He's terrific.
So do you think it's solely down to his fighting, or because of the mouth on him has something to do with it as well?
The personality only
aspect.
What?
The mouth is a huge aspect.
Yeah, but
he's everything they want.
He wasn't a promoter until he had the UFC stamp, so the mouth isn't what got him there.
No, but it's what has made him, like, within the four lightest weight divisions. This guy is in the top 5 talked about people, and he's had 2 fights.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
It's incredible. So, well, look, as it continues on, because we have people dropping like flies. Gunnar Nelson is against Zach Cummins, who is his 3rd choice opponent in terms of what the company wanted, and we had Filthy Tom Lawler also drop out.
That's a huge loss for the show. I think.
It is, because it's fantastic. When he's on the show, he's not like the name value, but he's the entertainment value. Even just to see what he'll do at the weigh-in.
Yeah,
it's incredible. But anyway, as the news comes out between now and July 19th, we will keep you updated on every single change and happening when it comes to the fights. And we will also be back next week. But until then, it's over to you, Chris.